Welcome to another edition of Market Impact Insights, your podcast source for business leadership perspectives to help your business grow. Hear from experts in marketing, sales, business strategy, and more, with practical advice for business success. Make sure you won't miss the latest episodes by visiting marketimpactnow.com. Now, here's your host, Dan Albaum.
Welcome back to another great episode of Market Impact Insights. If you are a B2B leader right now, tremendous opportunity to drive growth and to really lift the performance of your teams. But for all of us that are in a leadership role, it can be a bit chaotic. It can be crazy. We're getting out of the gates in the early part of a year. We're trying to get a narrower focus around a set of priorities, but also harness all of the technology and process and systems that can help our teams perform better and support the goals of the company. But how do we do that? What are the success ingredients, the best practices? We're going to dive into that with Alane Boyd. Now, Alane is a serial entrepreneur, a growth strategist, and a keynote speaker who's helping leaders break free from that chaotic, inefficient workday. That's the thing we don't want to have. And through very practical automation solutions, she's really helping rewire perspectives for winning this everyday grind. And she's empowering leaders to work smarter, reclaim their time, and lead more vibrant, balanced lives. So we're back to work-life balance. Who doesn't want to have that? And just some perspective on Alane. What a successful track record. In 2018, she grew her first tech company to an 8-figure enterprise. And over her 2-decade career in tech, she has developed and led 3 SaaS companies, successfully exiting 2 of them. She's currently co-founder, CEO of Biggest Goal, and she's helping companies improve their operations by automating very complex workflows. Now, her approach centers on transforming the chaos into more clarity by enabling businesses to remain productive and in control, even when you're out of the office. And we know that's happening a whole lot more in terms of flexible work environments. So with that, let's just jump in. Alane, welcome to Market Impact Insights.
Thank you, Dan. I love your storytelling capabilities.
Well, we're going to get into your story right here. It's a really interesting journey. Let's go back and what really sparked your passion to pursue this very entrepreneurial journey?
I think it was a combo of, I just really kind of always saw things as kind of not really a loner. I had friends, but just leading and always wanting to do things different than other people and didn't really want to follow how like something was done. And while I was growing up, my dad had his own insurance agency. And he grew it up to one point, and he just said, you know what, actually, I don't want to manage this many people. I'm going to downsize it back down. And he ran that till he was 72 because he just enjoyed it so much. And while I didn't want to follow his entrepreneurial path, I just saw what opportunities that he was able to provide to us and he was a part of our lives. He had the best work-life balance of any entrepreneur I've ever seen.
So he was always there for you to be present for events and just this big milestones in your lives.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember him coming to my swim meets and he was in his suit and tie, but he was there.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned, really being motivated by taking maybe the more contrarian view. How over time, I mean, was that maybe challenging at first when you had the voices push back to you to say, Alane, wait a minute, you should be going with the mainstream a little bit more. Did you have to deal with that struggle at all?
I would say I got my friends loved to pick on me because I was always trying to do things different and, wasn't maybe wanting to stay out and party till 2 a.m. with them or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'll say, and as I got older, that friend pool got smaller and it got lonelier as I got older. But I always enjoyed just being different and having just a little bit more individualism. And I think from an employer standpoint, really, honestly, I think they would have looked at me more as unmotivated than really like going against them, just because I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do it that way. And I'm just not. So, you hear a lot of people say for an employee, entrepreneurs just don't do well in that environment. And I definitely fit that mold.
Yeah. I mean, just conform, just plug in, just we've done it this way before, just be another cog in the machine. That wasn't you. You had maybe a more creative and energetic vision for what you could accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think what we're all looking for is, what does motivate us? What do we enjoy doing? And I really do like that creative kind of like, how could we do that? How can we do something similar but different?
Yeah. Well, when you look back on your journey so far, what's been some of the biggest personal learning that you've taken from it? And have there been surprises for you along the way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, gosh, early in building my company, I was really difficult because I only could see things my way and I wasn't very open minded and really lacked empathy. And, I say some of that is just to being young because I didn't have enough life experience to need to be empathetic at that point. So I was just very much, in my early 20s and didn't really understand why things needed to be different. So that was a challenge. Growing a large team when you think you're right about everything is hard. I really needed to grow up as a manager of people. I had to learn how to not burn people out. I had to learn not to burn myself out. And that, looking back at lessons learned is just, not working yourself to death, not working your team to death, and starting to be around other entrepreneurs. You really do need to be part of a community that has a thirst for growing and knowledge so that you can be in an environment around that. I can't remember what that saying is, but you're, like the five most people that you hang out with. Well, I needed to be around other people that were doing something similar so I could lift myself up or they could help lift me up when I needed it.
Yeah, that's a really big point because I've had a lot of conversations on this podcast with company founders, entrepreneurs, and many have said that it part of the dynamic of being that company founder is it can be a very lonely place. It can
Hmm.
feel very isolated in some sense, even if you're bringing a lot of employees on, but you're taking on this unique set of pressures and responsibilities for this thing that you've created. Was that something that you at all had to deal with in the midst of even through that growth phase?
Oh gosh, I did it. My business partner and I did everything by ourselves. I look back and I'm amazed by what we did without having any outside community or support. But then I also think back, man, had we surrounded ourselves with an entrepreneurial community back then, how much more could we have grown? And I think that really held us back by being limited in our resources, our knowledge, and just always just having to be, it was really just our next best idea.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the maturing that you had to go through as a younger leader, that were leading people, and empathy, and that you maybe didn't score high on that early on. Was
Yes.
that, I mean, because sometimes we talk about how do we become or evolve into being more empathetic? Is it just a switch that we just decide to turn on, or does it happen more organically? Is there a singular moment where there's an intervention or someone's being brutally honest with us and giving us feedback in terms of our blind spots? For you, how do you how did you see that happen in terms of being able to become more empathetic?
Some of it was the more that I was around other people in different um, parts of their lives. Whenever you're only around people just like you, then that's all you're ever going to experience. And so some of it was just hiring different employees in different stages of life. And, at first, maybe I was less empathetic, but then I'm like, wait a minute, this is like, I noticed this thing, with everybody has children, eventually they do have to stay home with their kid. I can be more understanding. But there were some things in my own life. getting a dog honestly helped me be more empathetic because I had to count on somebody else, or I had to care for something else other than myself.
Yeah.
And that was a really good, in my early 20s, having that experience and being responsible for something else. And then eventually getting married and having my own child. I would say that was the biggest empathetic moment because I understood, hey, life isn't just about work and people have lives outside of their time here. And that piece of it, and a little bit before I had a child too, really started me down this path of giving people time away from the office. That it's not okay that I'm expecting them to answer an email at 8 p.m. or that they're going on vacation and I'm asking them, hey, is it okay if I message you about this? Because just like them, I wanted to be able to go on vacation and have a break too and not be asked questions constantly. So some of it was just those experiences and just kind of going, well, what do I want to have happen?
Boy, do you know the sigh of relief that your employees had when that moment when Alane's no longer messaging me on vacation? They
Yeah.
probably, it's like a deep sigh of relief because I think we've all been there too. And the fact that you had that, the self assessment, the self realization, right?
Hmm.
Of to say, hey, now I'm seeing things in a different perspective. And there are some boundaries that we just don't need to cross in terms of how we're leading and managing our teams.
I completely agree on that. And, putting in systems, like, sure, it was scary at first. People, when we started really going all in on a tech stack that would alleviate us having to, WhatsApp each other while on vacation or something like that, it is scary. They've got to learn the technology. It feels overwhelming. And we just really went all in and really just clearly stated our vision. Like, we don't want you to have to be here till 8 p.m. We want you to be able to log off and we want you to have time with your family or doing whatever you do after you clock out, whatever that is. I want you to be able to enjoy that and not have to worry about answering a question from me.
Yeah. And what you're really doing there is you're giving people the permission and the reassurance that it's okay to have a sense of balance.
Hmm.
And just through those simple acts, as the leader in the company, it's making it so much easier for them that you're removing any chance they're going to feel the guilt or the shame of saying, well, wait a minute, someone else probably is still online and am I going to look like a slacker? And so if you kind of level the playing field and just say, hey, culturally, this is how we're all committing to behave and how to treat each other with respect for when you are officially away from the office. Doesn't it just make everything just feel like it's working better, even though you might be scared initially because it's different, but then after a while you get into this rhythm and then just everything just seems to move better.
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. And the number that stood out to me the most was the longevity that employees stayed with us, where we started to see, instead of people leaving between 6 months and 12 months, that we didn't have the turnover marker anymore because they were with us for 2 years, 3 years, 7 years. That's what I started seeing when I sold the company. There were some team members that had worked there for 7 years with us. And I wouldn't say we were, over generous with anything other
Yeah.
than the boundary that we set. We didn't, I think what you said really well was, we didn't let the employees dictate what the schedule was, because then you do have some people working late, other people not, and feeling guilty. And, oh, well, they clock out and then they don't answer. We set the boundary as a company and
Yes.
said, this is what we expect. And you just need to show up.
Yeah. Now, something that you've spoken a lot about, and you touched base on this even a little earlier in our conversation, the importance of building relationships and this idea of community. Can you go a little bit into what's been behind that for you? What's made that so valuable?
I didn't know what I was missing out on for so long. I think by the end of the experience when I sold my company, I was pretty burnt out. I was fairly negative, and I was a bit depressed, to say things lightly. And if you would have told me at that moment, oh, you should have been a part of a community of entrepreneurs or building relationships, I would have been like, sure, I go to conferences, like I'm networking with people there in the industry, whatever. But it wasn't until I joined two different entrepreneur groups and really saw and understood, but through experience, what it was like to have that. And I didn't even set the intention at the time of like, I'm going to grow my business because of these relationships. It was, wow, I actually have friends that can travel to Europe with, and, they can take a break from their business and we can go and enjoy, and we have similar interests and backgrounds and things to talk about. And because of all that was happening, my business was starting to grow because people do business with people they know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that was a sub part of that. But really, it was just like I had friends with commonalities that I could connect with. And I love traveling and I love exploring. And now I had a pot of people to do that with.
Yeah. And when you're building a relationship with those kinds of people, what have you found to be most important to ultimately create a long-term, meaningful relationship?
Turning off our CEO mindset of like trying to solve problems. Other people don't want you to solve their problems. They just want you to listen. So I learned just listen and ask, sometimes I'm just like, I'm hearing what you're saying, and what are you looking for in this conversation? And I'll be really blunt. Like, are you wanting ideas for like
Yeah.
things that I've experienced? Or are you just wanting to vent? Instead of us, we can tend to, as leaders in our org, to automatically go to solve problems. And a lot of people don't want us to do that.
I mean, that is so true. It's the difference between just being a supportive sounding board versus coming at them with consultant speak, right?
Mhm.
And jumping right there. And I love that. Don't make that assumption. Even that might be the cornerstone of what you do in your business. Maybe you're advising and you're consulting all the time. But in a case of a given relationship, every situation's different. Sometimes it's better to just actively listen
Mhm.
than to jump into that mode. That is so important. And I know the other thing that you've had hands-on firsthand experience with is driving sustainable growth and the role of systems in
Mhm.
doing that. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and this pairs really well with just, when I looked at, hey, let's just let employees leave work for the day. Having those systems in place, we just saw so much benefit from having a project management system where all of our work was housed, putting workflows in there, creating a knowledge base so that people weren't the knowledge base. We had SOPs and documents on how to do things. Because when you don't have those things, people are the answer. You have to ask them because they are the source of knowledge. And so building those systems just really gave us freedom.
Yeah. I mean, once you have some structure that can maybe build in a little more scalability, reduce the sense of reactive chaos, it seems to
Mhm.
just calm everybody down, but it seems to create better consistency, maybe a little more predictability in terms of the
Mhm.
performance.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where in my company we'd have rollout plans with a car manufacturer like Toyota, and they'd want us to onboard 200 car dealerships. Well, every one of those car dealerships are part of Toyota, who has standard procedures. They're used to a certain level of response and consistency. Well, as a partner of theirs, you have to show up similarly, or their car dealerships are going to get super frustrated. So not only did we have to roll out 200 in probably a 3-month span, but we had to do all 200 the same way, no matter who was their account executive managing them. And we did social media management and reputation management for them. And so we were writing content, managing reviews. And our process came down is how we ended up being able to grow. Not only could we take on those clients and meet the standards that we had to, but then the other manufacturers like BMW would go, oh, well, they successfully did it with those 200. Let's do a rollout with their company, with our dealerships. And so that consistency and having that process that no matter who handles the client, they have exactly what to do and how to do it became vital for us to be able to grow and have a similar result no matter who was managing it.
Was it really important for you to view the systematic approach as still being something that had to be adaptable over time? It wasn't, hey, we figured it out and this is the way it's going to be, or was it really a living, breathing, almost like an organism that based on the learning could evolve, you would tweak things? How did you approach that from
Oh
this the
gosh,
systems
yeah.
approach?
I mean, you have to, everything has to be just fluid and change, and then have training around the change too, because you need people to understand what's happening. And, I see this pretty much every business, should have some fluidity to its systems because you don't want to stay stagnant. But thinking back, even in that time of my business, we're doing social media. Well, when we first started, Facebook was the only one. Then Instagram got bought by Facebook, and Instagram's becoming more popular. Well, the car dealerships are asking about that. Well, then the algorithms change, and so the way that we wrote content, what content we were writing for what sites changed. For reputation, very very similar. And now, what our approach with clients is, you want to have a system that your team can follow, but you also want them to know that things can change and improve. And that's what you're always looking for, is how can this be improved? You don't want to stay the same, because the second that you do, then you become irrelevant with your clients, because somebody's going to change it and do it better. So your team has to really understand the tech that you're using, the software platforms that you're using, and where they fall in ownership of those. And so we kind of flipped things around one day, because it had gotten to a point where I wasn't in the day to day with the dealerships anymore. My team would come and be like, "Hey, I'm running into this issue," and I'm like, "Well, you're going to have to spend a day even bringing me up to speed before I can even help you solve this." And so we put in "Hey, do you have an idea to improve something? Submit it. The team will vote on it. If they think it's worthwhile, then we had like a bonus structure in place." But they had the best ideas. They didn't need us to come and manage things and try to figure it out. Like, the team doing the work had the ideas. We would run with the idea, test it out, vet if it worked. And if it did, guess what? The system got updated.
I love it's another way to get engagement too, because you're giving them the ability to continuously contribute their ideas on how to implement better. And so that engagement piece translates back to what you were talking about earlier with the retention, right? The loyalty. We know there's that high correlation between more highly engaged team members and then the likelihood you'll be able to retain them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because if they get to feel like they've got some ownership over it, they're valued, then you see that result in them wanting to stay at your company.
So where do you see AI impacting how marketers or business leaders strategize and execute going forward?
Gosh, I mean, it is just truly incredible just seeing what we're implementing in our own systems with AI and AI agents. And then, we assist companies in building agents as well. And, things in marketing, it has changed. And the amount of content marketing that you need to do to get out there has definitely changed. But AI obviously helps assist on that. And I think I had a conversation yesterday, and it really bothered me because the leader was like, "Oh, I'm just really hands-on, and I like doing things old school. I use ChatGPT, but I'm not interested in using agents." And the reason that those kind of conversations really bother me is that the point of using AI and agents isn't to be less human. there is so much behind the scenes work that we have to do in any company and in marketing and anything that no one values but has to get done. Moving content from a Word doc into your Webflow website has to get done. But is there value in a person doing that? There is not. And so instead of us thinking about AI as the front end of communication between people, think about it as it's doing the tedious things that we don't need to do anymore because it gives us time to be strategic, to execute, to be creative. And I think that's where we need to think of ourselves is we're the creative strategic ones. Let's let AI move data around.
Yeah, what you're saying is so important here because, on one extreme, there are people that are very fearful of where this AI may be headed to where, oh, this is going to wipe out the essence of humanness in the way we do that. But what you're saying is that human intelligence remains foundational and that we're just being really smart in terms of leveraging what AI can do to handle the things that don't necessarily require that unique essence of humanity. And we're going to apply that. We're not going to lose it, but we're going to apply it a little bit more smartly so that we can be more productive in what we do.
And exactly. And thinking about however you're using AI, whether it's, in ChatGPT or you're using an agent, in both scenarios, you have a human telling it what to do. It is only going to do what a human tells it to do. And so we're still the ones, leading the show here.
Yeah. Yeah. That take it to the crowd and the masses. We need to hear more of that, Alane, and just, stay focused on that. Now, one thing that a lot of the leaders that I've had on the podcast have talked about, maybe one of the most difficult things they've had to do, they founded and grown a company, is developing and maintaining a healthy culture. What's made the difference for you in being able to do that? And what role do you see executive leadership playing in making that happen?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I learned going through the sell of my company is that companies tend to band-aid. They try to offer nice perks and free lunches and things that they feel make a healthy culture, but they're never really digging in and seeing, well, where are we having issues? What are the pain points our employees are seeing? Let's smooth those out and make it a nice place to work. Toxic people, negativity, relying on humans instead of having a tech stack. Are you using a spreadsheet versus a CRM? Things like that can really play into a healthy culture and making it a nice place to work instead of just trying to throw money at it to solve the problem. It's not, what I see is that it doesn't really solve the problem. You're just putting a Band-Aid on and you're still going to get the same result, but you're thinking I'm going to get a different result because I'm investing so much money into making things better, but really just looking under the hood. Hey, what would make people happier? Oh, instead of having to buy pizza for them on Friday because they have to work till 7, how about I changed it so that they didn't have to work till 7?
Oh, amen. I like where you're going with this. It makes sense, right? But so often we can fall trap to, if I just spend more or invest more, what I choose to spend on becomes this panacea, or we become very hopeful for that versus let's just get at root cause of what maybe is creating pain and how we can make a better work experience for our teams, and they'll be happier and they'll stay.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want the good people to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's the best piece of business advice that you have ever received?
I had someone tell me, because I was in the moment, I was frustrated because I was reading this industry magazine and they highlighted one of our competitors who I thought we were much stronger at, and they should have interviewed us. And the advice I got was, yeah, but you're not telling anybody about the work that you do. You sit here and think, you expect people to think that they know what you do, but you're not telling anybody. So if you want people to know who you are, you have to get out there and you have to talk about the amazing work that you're doing. And I have carried that through in everything, even with my son. Is okay, but are you telling anybody? And that doesn't mean, hey, Dan, this is the amazing stuff that I'm doing. It goes down to marketing. It goes down to reaching out and building your network. If nobody knows who you are, nobody can do business with you. And so it really changed from me being a victim, which is what exactly I was doing. I was being a victim.
Yes.
And had the wrong mentality instead of course they didn't even know who I was to interview me in that magazine. Had I ever reached out to them? Had I ever sent them a case study, a testimonial, anything to say, hey, you could write an article about the work we're doing? And so I really had to change my approach to I'm in control of telling my story and people can reach out to me if I'm out there telling them.
And when you tell them, and we all know the research that says, what is it on average? If you really want an idea to really take hold for someone, you've probably got to tell them 3 times, the power of 3. So you tell them again, and then, oh, by the way, reinforce and tell them again. So it just not being unnecessarily understated, right? But just being more proactive is what you're talking about.
Proactive and consistent. And, when I'm thinking about like my early days, even in college, and one of the stories I like to tell is I ended up adding an engineering degree and doing a dual bachelor's. And I got scholarships. My professors would help me get these scholarships for my last year of engineering. And somebody asked me like, well, why do you keep getting them? And I'm like, because I keep showing up. I keep showing up at the events. And like after I got that advice from that business person, and I thought back to that, I'm like, of course, when you show up and you're consistent and you consistently show up, then things are going to happen because, whether it's 3 times or 5 times, whatever that number is, people are going to finally see you.
When you think about the future, what's making you optimistic?
Oh gosh, I mean, the what we're doing with AI is so incredible. It's so fun, and I think this is going to, even if I just looked at it for my own company, not even the work that we do for our clients, is how much more me I get to be in my own business because we can have agents do. If you put me in the weeds on things, man, my motivation in life just decreases completely. And so I get really optimistic thinking about how much easier my day can be with what I enjoy doing because I like doing the strategic part, networking, meeting people. So I get really optimistic about that. And I think that what we're going to see with AI and AI agents, we're just at the top. I mean, just think about in the last 2 years, how much the technology has changed and how much more is available to us.
It's moving so fast, Alane, but as you were talking, I was envisioning really it's this sense of personal freedom that you're experiencing that is really giving you that renewed energy and optimism and looking forward.
It is, and it's for my team too. I mean, I have you've talked with Yanel on my team when we were going through the getting set up for the
Yes.
podcast, and I remember having a meeting with her one day, and she's like, "Alane, I'm getting so bogged down in this one thing. It's eating up 90% of my time." And I'm like, "Okay, walk me through it." And I was like, "We can have an agent do this. Like now that we've done this workflow so many times, we know exactly the end result we need. We know exactly the inputs. We know exactly what we want the AI agent to do. Let's build an AI agent." And now she has the freedom. Like now
Yeah.
90% of her time got opened up because we were able to automate that piece of it. And so it's so exciting for each individual on my team. And then, that bubbles up to a company, what we're able to execute on.
So as we wrap up our conversation, Alane, do you have any other final advice for leaders that are looking to increase the positive impact that they can make in their companies or elevate the performance of their teams?
I think my biggest thing would be, look at, if you're not an AI agent, if you're not sure what that is yet, do some research, learn what an agent is. And one of the things that I see a lot of companies do when we're going through this process is that they want to build the exact workflow as it is now. But they've had to do it that way because they've had to do it manual for so long. So instead think about what is the outcome I'm trying to achieve and how could we make this process easier? Because then the end result that our teams want is just an easier workday, right? That's
We
really
all
why they're
want that.
using AI, why they're using ChatGPT, whatever it is. At the end of the day, they just want their job to be easier. So looking at it at the outcome, what is the outcome that we want, and making steps to learn what agents can do. Where can that alleviate work? Instead of it thinking about it replacing you, think about how can it assist us in doing a better job of what we do.
Yeah, that outcomes focus is huge, isn't it? Because it's that really laying out a vision for what you want the future state to be. And then now what can we use in terms of
Mhm.
AI technology and our humanness to get there? It's the ultimate combination.
Yeah. And we call it the future state. So Dan, you're
There you
crushing it.
go.
So we call it
Yeah.
the future state. I'm not joking.
Well, Alane, thanks again for joining and sharing your leadership journey, the self-awareness to get to a more empathetic leadership state, right? Your future state was about more empathy. And then how do we embrace AI, not fear it, in terms of being able to elevate what we can do in terms of teams and organizations? Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Dan. I did too. I really appreciate the interview.
And a reminder to please continue to give the gift of feedback to help make this podcast even better. You can do that by going out and giving a rating and a review. It's so easy to do on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. And as always, make sure to visit marketimpactnow.com for the latest in business leadership perspectives. So long until next time.